Hello, I am Megan Daubert, and you are listening to the Caretakers Journey Podcast.
Welcome, my friends, to another meaningful conversation. And boy, is this one going to go over the top. My guest today is Megan Daubert, and I cannot wait. I know I say this so often, but I cannot wait for you to meet her. I began stalking her on social media a few months ago when her profile came across my Instagram account. As I got deeper into her Instagram feeds, I discovered she too was a podcaster and she too is a caretaker of her husband. Now, I will be honest with you. I have asked Megan, and we haven't really talked about the depths of her story. I know kind of the overview of it, but I haven't even listened to her podcast yet because I wanted us to discover this story together. So, friends, I'm telling you, push pause and go grab a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and sit down because I just think you are going to be blessed by my guest today. Megan is a wife and a mother from Virginia Beach, Virginia. She has 3 children, 13, 11, and 9, and she's been married for 18 years to her junior high, high school, and college sweetheart. They met in junior high and they're still together today. So, friends, I just want to welcome you to the show. And Megan, I cannot wait for my guests to just hear your story. So welcome, Megan, to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this.
So, Megan, can you just take us back? I know that you had told me that you're 16 months into this journey and that it's raw. So will you share with us just what your life looked like before and then what the turning point was? Because I talk on our show a lot about how it was like one moment my life was here and then overnight it totally looked different. And I know just from what I've picked up from your social media that you're walking that same path. So share with us what your life looked like before, and then let's talk about how it changed.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you're just going to go deep quickly because that's a part of my struggle in this is that I loved our life before.
Oh, me too.
We've been together. We've been married 18 years together, 24 years, right? So I've grown up with Michael. We hold each other's history, right? We're both very driven go-getters. We love life. We love people. So wherever we land, we plant and we grow roots. And that's just who we are. And it's a joy. So we have been in Virginia Beach for 10 years and it is home. This is where we are. So life, we've been establishing ourselves. We have 3 kids. We were moving into a different phase of parenthood as our kids got older. Michael was, we've done many different careers and our career path is what brought us to Virginia Beach. So Michael was currently doing residential real estate and I helped on the side with marketing and client care, but I have had the honor of mostly being full-time mom to our 3 kids and raising them. Early on in his career, we moved around with his corporate job a lot. So I used to be a wedding planner. I had my own wedding planning business. You can't do that when you move around. So we kind of settled into I'm full-time caretaker of the kids. I love it. It's a joy. So Michael's doing residential real estate. I am kind of getting into that phase of life where, okay, I can start to breathe again as a mom. And okay, where do I want to use my skill set? Where do I want to build a career? How do I add into what Michael's doing? So we also have been working on this big development project in our city, and I was weaving in my love of the wedding industry, and he was weaving in his love of developing places of connectivity for the flourishment of community. And we were tapping into what we felt the Lord created us to do. And we're also big risk takers. So we were taking, time, financial risks, and, all the while him keeping his real estate business going and me raising our 3 kids. We're involved in our local church. We're involved in sports, all the things. It was just a fulfilling and beautiful life, not without challenges. I mean, I feel like I'm painting a perfect picture. It was not perfect, but it was good. And
Mhm.
so that is kind of where 2024 um, began. Now, pulling back the curtain a little bit more, and I talk about this in my own podcast, in my own journaling, just 2023 was a very difficult year for us. And I had really been leaning into the Lord hard. Like I felt, I would call it our Red Sea moment. I was just begging the Lord for big, big things. I was begging the Lord for miracles. I was like, I want to see the God of the Old Testament, how he moved then. Like, I want to see him move now in my, you know, um, in my privileged life here in a first world country where we're conditioned to comfort. Like, no, I want to see big things happen. And um, I thought those prayers were directed in a different direction, honestly. So all of 2023, I was just leaning into the Lord, desperate to hear his voice, desperate to learn more about him, desperate to see him move in my life, in people's lives that we were around. And so it was a hard 2023 is hard. So January 2024, we finally felt like we were coming up for air. Things had been picking up in all spaces of our personal life, and we were optimistic for the first time in many months. Um, and so February 5th was the date of Michael's accident. So February 5th, 2024. Um, Michael plays in an adult soccer league every Monday night, the adult soccer league at the Virginia Beach Field House. It was his thing for the last 7 years. Normal, everyday activity. Um, so this particular Monday, we had sat down to watch an evening basketball game together after dinner, and then it was about 8 o'clock, and it was time for him to go. So I remember the kids and I, give him a hug, say, "All right, we'll see you later. This is what you do." He grabs his soccer bag and trudges out the door, and we don't think anything of it. So I put the kids to bed, and I do go into more detail of this in my storytelling because there are so many
Mhm.
fascinating ways that I look back and I'm like, wow, that is so interesting that night, Lord, I was reading this story over my child and I did this or I didn't do this. Um, so anyway, that night, um, I put the kids to bed. It was a very peaceful night, my side of the house. I finish putting my kids to bed, and then I get a pounding on my front door, and it's dark, and I'm like, it's alarming. Like, wait, I don't need a pounding on my door
Yeah.
this time of night. I kind of like creep to the front of my window to see, can I see, is there a car out there? Can I recognize anything? But I don't see anything. Then the pounding it continues. And then finally the doorbell rings. So I look and I joke because I grabbed a pencil. I was like, this is the only weapon I have because, Mama Bear is going to protect her kids. So I yank the door open with my pencil, and then it's my neighbor, like kind of like um, worked up at my front door. And he's like, "Megan, you've got to get to the field house. I just got a call. They're performing CPR on Michael. You got to get there." And I have this feeling that when I tell the story, it still happens in my body. Like this wave of terror just rolls through my feet, all the way to my head, back down, and settles in the pit of my stomach. So it was like terror washed over me. And then I quickly got a hold of it and was like, okay, what do I do? And it was this moment of um, kind of setting into action, into motion what I need to do. I have no questions answered. I just know that my neighbor told me this bizarre story, and now all of a sudden I need to drive to the field house. So he offers to stay home with the kids until my mom can get there. Um, and I drive to the field house. So what has happened during that time is Mike's playing soccer. He's healthy. He's 39 years old. He takes himself out of the soccer game, sits down behind the wall. This is an indoor soccer field, and basically goes into cardiac arrest on the sidelines. Um, there was one other teammate who was sitting out on the bench, which is miraculous in and of itself, because if you are sitting on the bench and you fall to the ground like he does, you can't see because there's a half wall over on this side of the soccer field. And the gentleman that was sitting next to him was a former firefighter paramedic who is trained in CPR. So he immediately, follows him down to the ground, holding his wrist, taking his pulse. And at this time, he still has a pulse. Um, Jimmy is his name. He describes it as not being sure if Michael was having a seizure. It kind of looked like seizure-ish activity. Um, but he oversees him, and then Michael loses his pulse. He turns blue. It's time to kick CPR in gear. Um, they end up, and this story, I was not there. This is what's happening simultaneously, or this is what's happening while I'm putting my kids to bed, is how that timing worked out. Um, it was 24 to 27 minutes that he was without a pulse. So without oxygen flowing freely, flowing to his brain. Um, Jimmy and there's other gentlemen, other team members giving him CPR. Someone has called 911. They find a defibrillator in the field house and they begin to administer the shocks. The shocks don't work. Um, and finally, when the on-call paramedics and EMS arrive, they bring in, I think, just a higher power defibrillator, and that shock does revive or does get his pulse back. Um, and at that point is when they take him off the field and wheel him to the ambulance where they begin to intubate him. And that is the time that I arrive at the field house, having gone through my own story in that 25 minutes on the way there. Um, Yeah, so and all the while, everybody describes it just being kind of chaotic, and the folks in there who, like Jimmy, who was a paramedic, he was like, "This is not good." Like, people don't, you don't spend 24 minutes on the ground and wake up as you're being wheeled into the ambulance. But we don't know this. We don't know what's going on. It's just chaos and confusion. So that was the initial event. It was a cardiac arrest, brought him to ICU, and from there began this journey of, well, the next he didn't wake up for days. He was basically in a coma, um, heart failure, other systems in his body had taken a hit. I mean, his kidney and his liver um, were not really functioning. He was blue. He was feverish. He in the hospital. He's surrounded by ice packs to try to keep the body cool. We can't do a brain MRI until we get all these. I don't even know what the conditions had to be for him to get a brain MRI. So we at this point just don't know what's going on. So um, it became clear he was it was over a week till we had answers. And I'm not even thinking, people are starting to tell me, oh, brain damage might be a possibility. I'm just thinking like, oh my gosh, a heart attack, like what has happened? What's wrong with his heart? He's young, he's healthy. He had no signs that we knew of. So um, out of the blue, this happened out of the blue. Um, my kids are involved, right? Like this is just a total wrecking ball in the middle of a normal Monday, Tuesday in February of 2024. Um, so yeah, I don't know how much more of the journey you want me to.
You know, as you're talking, I feel this. I often describe it as an earthquake. That I'm from California, so I have an earthquake. You're in Virginia. You have tornadoes? Do you have tornadoes and hurricanes? Okay. But I often describe my journey as this earthquake that happened because that's what I know best here in California. And an earthquake changes the trajectory or the landscape of your ground. And I just feel like you went through something so similar where it's just like it almost changes reality. It's like you go from this reality to this reality. So as you're navigating all of this, I love that you talk about the shock, the trauma, and yet that mama bear part of you kicks in because we have these different roles that we are responsible for. And you have 3 children. And so how did you navigate in those first few weeks while you're still trying to it's like happening. How did you navigate with your kids?
Yeah.
Because I know for me, my kids were in their late 30s when we went through this with my husband.
Mhm.
Or they were in their early 30s, actually. And I know even as adults, it was hard to navigate with them what that looked like. But I can imagine as teenagers, it's difficult. So how did you
Yeah.
navigate that? And share with us one or two ways that you saw God show up.
Yeah.
Because I love those stories. And I know you've told me
Mhm.
you have a lot of them, but share how you dealt with this with your kids. And then one or two ways that you saw God show up in those first few days.
Yeah. Um, so pulling back, it became obvious that he had brain damage. So not only was he a cardiac patient, now we were neurology. We were,
Mhm.
okay, are we going to get brain function back? And that's
Mhm.
where you begin to realize, oh no, life could be dramatically different.
Mhm.
We have people that survive heart attacks and are able to go on with, a beautiful preventative surgery, right? But so I was beginning to get a little bit of a picture of what had just happened. Um, I say that I went into shock very quickly.
Mhm.
And my body, my systems, they were protecting me, right? Fight or flight mode. I was in fight mode because I'm a mom. And I also have this instant loyalty to my kids to protect them. And while I am, you know, in in shock in my own, this is my husband, what is happening to life, you never lose that protective
Mhm.
relationship over your kids. Like, um they they were still going to school. They had to wake up and, get their lunches packed and get their clothes laundered and do their homework. um I was very careful with my words and my actions and um my choices around them because I didn't want to, well, one, I didn't know what was going on over in the hospital all the time. So I didn't want to transmit fear that was unnecessary to the kids. So I definitely shielded a lot from them. Like I didn't bring them to see him at the hospital. It was not a sight I wanted them to have in their memory. Um, but that's also another grief. Like the kids, daddy's not home, but they have no connection to him. They haven't seen him. They don't
Mhm.
actually know how he's doing. So one way this weaves into all the answers, our community showed up
I love
immediately.
that.
Our
I
family,
love
I have
that.
3 siblings. They're all married. They all live here now. My parents are here. Mike's parents and family members are not local, but they drove down in the wee hours of the night that day. So we were surrounded by our people, and um, we have very deep friendships here who we've actually been through a lot together. So they just knew how to step in to high
Mhm.
gear, and they knew how to fill the gaps that I couldn't even express were gaps. So, I mean, the next every day, every morning, I had some other adult in my house just helping me with the morning routine. I had somebody picking the kids up from school. I mean, I didn't even think about meals. I don't even remember what I was eating, but somebody was feeding us. So just the way people stepped in to help up was just the beauty of how the Lord intends for us to live in community with
Mhm.
people. Um, I mean, that I would uh, just showing up for people is what I think is required of us in these times of needs, and people showed up for me. Um, and But I do remember it being very difficult to operate with one foot in each world, one foot in the world of the hospital ICU, and this is my husband and my own pain, and one foot in the world at home with my kids and my babies. And my daughter was in 6th grade and she had homework. And I remember getting home from the hospital at 9 o'clock at night, and she'd be like, Mom, help me with this assignment. And I couldn't read.
Mhm.
I'm an educated woman. I couldn't read these questions. I couldn't make sense. It was like I was reading backwards. It was I mean, I know there's a clear psychological term for what I was experiencing, but I remember saying, "Carmen, I can't I have no idea how to answer this. I've got to email your teacher and explain to them what's going on. I've got it like there will be grace for you. Don't worry about it. Um, but Carmen not quite getting that, like she didn't quite understand why
Yeah.
I couldn't help her. Her world had not quite been blown up yet, truthfully. That
Hmm.
comes later on in our story for our kids. Right now, they're just like, "What is wrong with you, mom? Why can't you function?" Um, it was it was painful.
Hmm.
I I had the kids take turns, like, they would sleep in my bed, like, one at a time during the night, because they obviously sensed something was up. So, we would just each kid would get a time to, snuggle with mommy and lay in our big bed, and then, um, those were just some sweet moments because I was able to pray with them at night. Um, I remember one specific night, my son Brooks looked at me and he said, "Mommy, can we pray that daddy walks tomorrow?" And this was further on in the weeks where he was beginning to get some therapy to see where is he in the world of physical therapy. And so, Brooks just had the foresight to say, "Hey, can we pray for him?" And um that's fearful for me as a mom to hear my son, wanna see a big ask, and here I'm gonna be like, "All right, okay, Lord, I'm gonna ask you this really big prayer request in front of my child now, who this may or may not be answered tomorrow, and you're gonna have to hold his faith because he's either gonna be disappointed in you, he's gonna be disappointed in me, but I have no control over that anymore. So, I'm gonna pray this prayer, okay? And you're gonna deal with it, Lord, right? Right, right, right,
I
like
I love those side conversations because I have done that so many times
Mhm,
in and watching and walking through my own situations.
mhm,
And for you to just there's two things I want to bring out that I've heard you say in these last few minutes. Number one, in the whole year of 2023, God was building a foundation
mhm,
of relationship for you and him.
mhm,
So that when this happened, whenever a person hits trauma in the world of faith, you do one of two things. You either lean in or you walk away.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I saw the same thing in my own journey where God just was so close to me, and my relationship with him had gotten so deep that, like you, when the trauma comes, there was just this natural leaning in. It was like there was nothing else I knew to do.
mhm,
And so I love that. And I also
mhm,
love where you shared that your community showed up.
mhm,
So a lot of my community didn't show up because we had a much different situation with mental health issues, and it
mhm,
scares people.
mhm,
But what happened was our extended community didn't show up, but God had put people in my life 20 years ago. So I had a nurse friend who had been in my life for over 20 years. And when she came to me, she's like, I was a nurse, right? Yeah. Well, what you don't know is I was a psychiatric nurse.
mhm, mhm,
And so God
mhm,
brings those communities to help kind of undergird us. And I had another friend who's a pharmacist, so she could help me navigate the world of serotonin inhibitors and what does
mhm,
this look like and what does this mean? And she would fly in to Los Angeles and drive over the hill to Bakersfield just so she could put eyes on me,
mhm,
you know. And I
mhm,
think the community, the foundation of God, the community that he has, and you are so right, this is how we're supposed to live.
mhm,
And that's a beautiful, beautiful picture of how when we get into crisis, because now there's so many incredible people
mhm.
that walk through this. The next thing that I love that you said is how you're laying in bed with your son and you're having a side conversation with God
Mhm,
about what you need to do
mhm,
with your son. And you're teaching your son the big prayers
mhm.
and trusting God with what could potentially be a disaster, disappointment.
Right.
And so, yet God is big enough where he's big enough for us to have those conversations.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a beautiful picture of a mom, how you're trying to navigate this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what a
I
great experience.
what is, I don't think, I mean, this is not unique, but I am starting to tell my story before it's even finished. I call this, I'm telling you a very unfinished story because I want to bring you into the journey with me because I
Yeah.
need it, but also I think other people need to see it too. Um, but I don't have any of the answers of how my 3 children will come out of this,
Mhm.
right? Like they are very much on their own healing journey, and it might take one of them years, and it might take another one only 1 year. It might they
Mhm.
they need to have some wisdom and maturity under their belt before they can truly process this too. So I am walking through life, like you said, just choosing to trust you, Lord.
Mhm.
Um, because yes, in this time of crisis, it is so obvious that I have no control. I had an illusion of control prior to this, of, how my children turn out, how our family turns out,
Mm.
how things will go. I could not have, the Lord could not have showed me clearer that, whoop, you actually don't. And, um, and here, let me show you how. So to open-handedly parent these kids through this is, I am learning that this is better. I'm learning that this is actually how God intends for us to steward his kids. Like
Mhm.
he gives them to us in this time to steward. But and somewhere along the way, I begin to say, "Oh, they're mine. They're mine. I know what's best
Mm.
for them. I know what they need. They needed their dad present in their life this whole time, and how could you take them away?" But for me to be able to step back and say, "Okay, I have to trust you that even though they're experiencing a ton of pain right now, and I don't know when we will see the other side of this." Um, it it is a big learning lesson in surrender for me. I feel like I'm grasping it. I mean, I'm sure I will continue to learn this for as long as I live, but um, that has been, it's almost a weight lifted off of me when I truly
Mm.
can hand it back to the Lord and be like, "You're right. You had this the whole time. This is not something for me to carry." I will always feel the pain as a mom, but the pain in my heart can also walk side by side with the posture of surrender.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that picture because we started out talking about what a lot of people would consider a charmed life,
Yeah.
and that's kind of where I was. People always would say, "Oh, you guys, you guys have no problems. Things are great." Because from the world's perspective, they're watching this. And one of the things that I've discovered is that the world buys into this, Christians especially buy into this big, ugly lie, which is when things are going perfect, when things are on a roll and the world looks bright and beautiful, that we're in God's will and we're being blessed. But boy, when things start falling apart,
Mhm.
whether it's through a cardiac arrest
Mhm.
or a mental breakdown,
Mhm.
people start asking, well, where is God? How could God let this happen? And why is this a part of his plan? And I remember, my listeners have heard me say this before, the morning after I left my husband, or I got kicked out of a psychiatric hospital
Mhm.
and told to not come back and don't call. We'll let
Mm.
you know in 72 hours where he is. It's like psychiatric jail. It's like the most horrible thing in the world that I can even imagine for my situation at that time, 1 o'clock in the morning in a parking lot. The next morning, I open my scripture and I read James 1, verse 2. Consider it all joy when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith, blah, 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 blah. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. The scripture says when, not if,
Mhm.
because we're all going to go through trials.
Yeah.
The question is, are we going to trust God
Mhm.
when we get there? And I love the picture that you are painting of leaning into God and trusting him, even though you are in the middle of it. I'm 10 years into it.
Mhm.
We don't know how this is going to end. So talk to us about where you are 16 months later,
Yeah.
today, June 9th.
Mhm.
This is going to air in July, but we're talking on June 9th. So where are you June 9th right
Yeah.
now?
So it's a lot different than it looked 16 months ago. the lasting effects of Michael's cardiac arrest and what it was an anoxic brain injury. So the lack of
Okay.
oxygen made it an anoxic brain injury. Um, the disbursement of damage in an anoxic brain injury is kind of, it's not an isolated location like a
Mhm.
traumatic brain injury. So there are different, like the lasting effects, are very interesting. He has severe memory loss,
Okay.
short-term and long-term memory loss. His working memory, like we use tools. I mean, I have a digital calendar. We use Post-its. We use text message reminders. He is independent physically now, which is a beautiful thing to see him physically bounce back because he had to relearn the walking and the talking and the eating. That happened fairly quickly. But his, cognitive healing
Mm.
is what is slow, what is lacking. He recently officially diagnosed on paper as a neurocognitive disorder. Um, he the prefrontal cortex, is less established.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, he'll respond kind of the way adolescents respond. Um, you have less of a filter. You you don't have a high tolerance um, for your external inputs. So a lot of time noise bothers him, or he doesn't get nuances very well. And when you're a parent, a lot of your parenting, each of your three individual children in our case, requires a lot of nuances, like how we have built our relationships with them. Each one is different. Right
Mhm.
now, his world is very black and white. It is
Mm.
very difficult for Michael to, um, pull his weight in the side of a relationship, which it's not his fault, but that's just the only way to put it. He cannot invest the way he used to. And
Mhm.
he was an incredible father. He was a great teacher. He was an incredible best friend to me. And he has not been able to do that. So our family, me and the kids were 16 months without the person he used to be. His personality, thank the Lord, is very much the same. So we have a mostly happy and content Michael, but it's like the depth is not there. So we have what I have learned through this process, like our family is operating in ambiguous grief and ambiguous loss where the person is with us. So it's very hard to see
Mhm.
why you're so distraught, why you're upset, why you're sad because he's here. But what has been lost is so much deeper than that, and it's really difficult for my children to grasp. So I'm trying to work on giving them the language, like teaching them, "Hey, this sadness that you feel, I feel it too, and it's real."
Mhm.
But like and your anger is okay, and I see why you're angry at such and such or the world or at daddy, but you still have a responsibility in your anger. We can't act out. You can't hit your brother. You can't be disrespectful. But like, so just teaching them what it is like to live in a world of ambiguous grief.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I had to learn it first so that then I could teach them. Um, and my journey as a caregiver has changed over the past year because he was it took him a while for his awareness also to catch up to speed. Like, he was not aware he was in a hospital. He was not aware he was a patient. He was not aware he couldn't go back to work. He was not aware he couldn't have his phone. He couldn't drive. So was very vigilant, um, over I mean, I just, like, hung out with him every minute of every day. Okay, what are we gonna do next? Let me drive you to therapy. Okay, now we're gonna drive to a doctor's appointment. Now we're gonna eat lunch. So I have since then, I've he can no longer work. So I
Mm.
have had to not only full-time caregive, but I've had to try and pick up where he left off in the world of real estate, which if you've ever done real estate, like that is a
Mhm.
slow roll and it involves a ton of time and a ton of marketing efforts and building trust with your clientele, sitting at a computer for hours, doing activities where now my sweet Michael just kind of hangs out next to me, not doing anything, but I have to, like, I have to keep things going. So I am constantly in this limbo of I'm not caregiving well, I'm not momming well, I'm not real estate agenting well. What, like, this guilt, and now between me and the Lord is constantly like, "Y I love you. You can do this. Here's your portion for today." Like, you know, pop better self-talk, Megan. But my reality is sitting in this, my cumulative load is heavy.
Mm.
The things I am holding, the things I am responsible for, or the things that are dropping because I've got too much. Um, yeah, it's our daily. Um,
So is he living at home with you?
yes, yes, he got to come home. We went to the Shepherd Center in Atlanta
Okay.
for his brain injury rehabilitation, and that was phenomenal. Um, he it was recommended he go to even another level of long-term care after that, but he was so disoriented, he just wanted to
Mhm.
be home, that we
Yeah.
took the risk. I was like, "Okay, we're gonna go home. If it's bad, we can pull back and find another facility." But home was actually very healing and very grounding for him to
Okay.
be in his element and in his routine. So
Okay.
we have been home since um, last April, actually.
Wow.
Um, and it has taken a long time to get back to normal routine. We don't have normal routines. I don't know what
Yeah,
you're talking about.
you have a brand new normal routine.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like you're not gonna go back to what you had before,
Mhm.
but it's finding a way to integrate what you have into a
Mhm.
daily routine.
Yeah.
And I think that the self-talk that you were talking about, that negative self-talk that you
Mhm.
were talking about,
Mhm.
is one of those really, really critical things that as a caretaker in any caretaking situation, whether it's in the early stages, which you are still
Mhm.
so much in the early stages, or whether you're like me, it's been a decade. And
Mhm.
I had added
Mhm.
my mom to the mix. So for
Mhm.
3.5 years, I was like a ping pong ball going back and forth across the country from
Yeah.
California to Milwaukee and changing, craziness. And I think that self-talk is something that the Lord has to really work on us as caregivers, because we do set these high standards in our mind of how we're going to do it. And in reality, we have to give ourselves space to
Yeah.
breathe and give ourselves space to make a mistake and give
Mhm.
ourselves space
Mhm.
to not live up to the standards that we set,
Mhm.
because sometimes those standards aren't the standards that we need to have. And so I love how you are navigating this difficult journey.
Yeah.
And it's a 24-hour journey,
Yeah.
not just with Michael, but with your children.
Right.
And
Right.
so as we close out, what is one thing, if you could go back and talk to yourself before this all happened, is there something
Mm.
you would want to tell yourself that would make a difference today, make it
Mm.
easier? Or is there something you would just like to leave our caregivers with as we close out our conversation?
Gosh, I haven't. I It's a newer reflecting question for me. I don't know if I have thought what I would say to myself prior to this, knowing that this was coming. Um, I think what is coming to mind right now is just those expectations that I held for our family, good, healthy, positive expectations. Um, they were fine, but also like the Lord, the Lord knows what they were.
Mhm.
And though they feel that they've been, taken away, shattered, we have to find new dreams, find new
Mm,
goals and hopes for our family. That that will be possible. And that was just one idea I had for myself. And maybe I thought I was dreaming big, but in reality, those were just small dreams. And maybe I need to remember, like, the Lord can make so much out of what we have been through. Like, this isn't actually shattered. My expectations were shattered. Not my
mhm.
life. Like, maybe this is the life the Lord had for us all along, and watch what he's going to do with it. Like this bend towards optimism, not neglecting the pain. Like you still need to hurt
Right.
and process through the pain, but like the the hope that we have in the Lord is worth its weight. Like
Mm,
watch what he's going to do, watch how he's going to heal. It's not at all the story you thought you were writing. That's because you weren't writing it. The Lord was writing it. So like just trust him. Um he is near. Um and yeah, just the value and prioritizing listening to his voice in this, like that's I would leave everyone with that. Like practice what it is to listen for the voice of God, because you need it. And like you said earlier, you will have troubles. We will walk through suffering. Your suffering might not be on the large scale, it might be small, but it will be real. So are you primed and ready for it? Are
oh,
you going to listen for that still small voice of the Lord? Like, are you going to, do you know what it's like to open your Bible and to just listen and be curious? Where is he speaking? Like that, that is how you can ground yourself.
that's so beautiful. And it's so true because we feel, well, in the world of caretakers, I love to say that you are one of three in the world. A person, let's just take a person in general. Any person in the world is in one of three places right now. And this is, the statistics are just crazy that this is true. You are either walking into a caretaking, you're in the middle of a caretaking, or you're going to be caretaking in the future. It is just the nature of who we are as a society. And when we look into the scriptures, it's how God designed our community of family, of church. That's what. And it's funny because sometimes I look and the people who are closer to me are not family by blood, they're family by choice.
Mm-hmm.
And those family by choice are the ones that God sends into our lives to help us.
Yeah.
And really sometimes they have to, like, I have people who, and I hope you have these same people who will call me if they haven't heard from me in a few days or haven't gotten a text or haven't seen me post on social media. And the first question one of them will ask is, when's the last time you took a shower? Because that's a good indication. If they ask me when was the last, or they text me and they say, when was the last time you took a shower? And I can't immediately say, oh, it was yesterday morning before church, or it was yesterday afternoon. If I cannot tell myself in my brain, when was it, then it means that I'm kind of slipping into the caretaker's depression, the caretaker's, we can get so exhausted, burnout. And so that's a good indication for me. And I love that I have people in my life who are just bold enough to do that and say, no, you need to go out and you need to go get coffee and you need to go do this. And so, it's so important for us to take care of ourselves. And so, I hope that you have those people in your life, Megan. And if not, send me your phone number because I'll be happy to be one of those people for you. Because I just know that nothing happens by accident. I didn't just come across your profile by accident, Megan. I didn't just really become intrigued and fall in love with you as a person through your social media just by accident. It was God just directing in the same way that he's given me this opportunity to just reach out and encourage. So I thank you for your transparency and your authenticity and for bringing us in. And I would encourage you listeners to go to her podcast and start with one. That's what I'm going to do as soon as we sign off. So by the time y'all hear this in a few weeks, I'm going to be caught up and continue to stay following Megan's story as God unfolds it and watching, because everything in our life, I really believe, is that he wants to show you as the listener through Megan's and my lives how he wants to show up in your lives, or how he's already showing up. And sometimes we're missing it because our eyes are not on that. We're on our problems and whatever. So Megan, how can I have some incredible prayer warriors who listen to this broadcast. How can we pray for you?
Yeah. Thank you. I love that question. And I feel held by prayers from day
Mm,
one. I have felt held by people's prayers. So I appreciate that and don't take it lightly. I think my current prayer request for myself would be um, that I could work through. I confess to the Lord this fear. I have this fear of I said it in a real ugly way, but I was telling him the truth. I said, I have this fear of being reliant on your provision for the rest of my life. And when I said that, I was like, whoa, okay, I see what you're doing, Lord. But I think I've been fleshing out like I need just strengthen my faith and my trust, Lord, that you are my provider. You are my family's provider. You see us, you know exactly what I need. Do not let me have anxiety over the future, financially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Like, just allow me, Lord, to be obedient in peace.
mm.
So I think, yeah, like, Lord, give me the strength to trust you, to not be fearful, to know that you will provide and give me peace in that walk right now.
I feel that prayer, and I'm in the same exact position. Exactly. We want to feel like we are in control of the financial piece, the
Mhm,
how are we going to feed our babies piece? How am I going to pay the bills piece?
mhm.
And God is saying, do you trust me?
Yeah,
So before we close, could I pray for you?
please, I would love it.
Okay, I'm going to actually pray and then I'll close out the show. God, I just thank you for Megan. I thank you for her 3 children. I thank you for her love, the love of her life, Michael, that you are creating something beautiful out of what the world would call tragedy and unfortunate circumstances. And yet, God, we can see how your fingerprints are all over Megan and Michael and their life. And God, I just pray right now for her request that as we, and I am including myself into this prayer, and I'm sure there's other caregivers who are out there going, oh, me too, me too. God, as we as caregivers navigate the change of jobs and employment, and how are we going to get the money, and how are we going to make this work? I pray, God, that our eyes would stay totally fixed on you. I pray, God, that you would continue to just take care of Megan and be there walking through this whole thing with her. I know, God, that you are stirring in her heart this deeper understanding of trust. And God, I too, like Megan, prayed that you would speak and you would show yourself like those in the Old Testament. When you spoke to Abraham, when you spoke to Moses in the burning bush, I can't even tell you how many times in my life I prayed, God, would you please speak to me that clearly? And God, both Megan and I are on this journey now where we have heard your voice and we see you showing up just like that. And I pray, God, that you will continue to hold her, hold Michael. We know, God, that you love Michael more than any of us and that you hold his life in your hands. And God, I thank you for the authenticity and the transparency that Megan is walking through her life and just the clear understanding that she is giving you all the glory. And God, just continue to be with her. I pray that today something would happen that would just bless her and she would see you in a deeper and more clear way. Because God, we know that you love this family. Thank you for the opportunity to just have a conversation about you, how much we love you, and how much we see you working in our lives. And we ask all this in your precious name. And
Amen.
wow, Megan, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you, as a listener, have been blessed by this conversation. I am telling you that I knew when I asked Megan to come on the show that she would be as transparent and authentic as she has been. And I think we'll have to have you come back in a few months or so
Yeah.
and have you give us an update. Or we can just listen to your podcast because I know that you'll be sharing that with us. And I just want to thank you for joining us today. And this meaningful conversation has touched me in some incredible ways. And I'm feeling myself getting emotional even as I talk to you right now. But I'm so grateful for each of you who tune in every week. I do not take you lightly. I do go through the countries, the cities, the numbers. I know that those all represent a caretaker somewhere in the world. And I hope that you are continuing to feel just encouraged and inspired by this journey that we're on, because as caretakers, we all have different journeys, but we all have the same needs: God, community, trust, and not feeling isolated and alone. So thank you. Thank you for being a part of this community. If you know a caretaker, share the link to this show with them. I hope that they would be encouraged. Then if you would hit follow or subscribe, that, as Megan knows in her podcast, that's how other caretakers can find us. And so if you just take a few minutes to go her podcast, go to my podcast, all of her links will be in the show notes. And finally, make sure you're on our newsletter, because if you go to thecaretakersjourney.com, I have started a new weekly newsletter that goes out every single Tuesday morning, drops into your inbox. It's full of just things I'm learning on the journey, people like Megan that I'm getting to meet and talk to, resources that I recommend. And God, Megan, you had a book that you wanted to share with us as a resource possibly for caretakers out there. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, I would highly recommend Every Moment Holy.
Okay.
There are 3 volumes, and I picked up volume 2, which is on death, grief, and hope.
Oh.
And sometimes when you're at a loss for words, when you can't pray because you're exhausted, there are just some beautiful liturgy and prayers written in this book that just allow you to align your heart with what has been written and point you back to your hope in Jesus. So Every Moment Holy would be my recommendation.
Okay. Can you send me that information on that book? Because I'll put that also in the show notes, and I will use that as a resource. The week that our interview comes out, I'll use that as a resource that I share with the caretakers.
Absolutely.
So that resource will also be in the show notes today when you listen to the podcast. And I just am so appreciative of everything that God has given me through this journey. And I know that you are as well. And as we navigate the pains and the struggles, because let me tell you, you're never going to hear me say it's easy, because it's not. And while I have a smile on my face right now, sometimes I'm on the floor behind the scenes, just crying and asking God crying out to God. So thank you so much for joining us. It has been a delight and a pleasure. And I will be back next week for another meaningful conversation about what it looks like to be on the caretaker's journey. And until then, it's all about Him.